Welcome to the June Homestead Huddle. A little bit late this month. I had some family things going on, or still have some family things going on, so I'm a little bit later, but for you guys as homesteaders or farmers or property owners, we all know that family always has to come first. So sometimes our schedules need to be adjusted, our resources, our time management needs to be adjusted. So thank you so much for your grace and your understanding with this being a little bit later than expected this month. So if you are new here, the purpose of these homesteads huddles is to help talk about things that homesteaders, farmers, backyard food foresters, and gardeners are doing or could be doing every single month. So for the month of June, we'll talk about what are the most important things that you can be doing in your growing zone, in the garden, in the food forest this month. And then we'll address some of the common questions and threads that homesteaders are asking as we're going about our tasks on any given month. So these questions every month are brought by the Patreon members. There are free subscriptions and tiers all the way up to homestead mentorship options within Patreon. But that's a place for us to connect and do homestead mentorship and classes without the noise and random opinions of social media. So for those of you that in the past, if you've hired a homestead consultant, many of those farm consultants can be thousands of dollars just to show up at your house and give you a little bit of advice. But this is a way for people that are backyard homesteaders, have a small farmette, 40 acres or under or whatever, to be able to do farming a little bit more on a budget and with a lot more interaction than some corporate farm executive, from a university office or an extension office somewhere. So that's the purpose of these homestead huddles. And I just want to remind you, sometimes I think we're under the impression that it has to cost us tens of thousands of dollars to do farming, to do gardening, to take a few steps for our property or our family. And it really doesn't. There are so many things that we can do DIY, but sometimes we also need to have somebody take us along that journey just a little bit. Now, I'll be honest with you, the answers that I'll give today are not perfect answers, and they are not the only answer. In fact, there are many ways to plant a fruit tree. There's a lot of nuances to gardening, to homesteading, to taking care of animals and livestock that may not be the way that I would do it exactly, but it might be right for you, for your farm and your homestead. So these answers are things that I would do in my own practice if I were in your shoes, but by all means, these are not the only ways to address these questions. And so if you have other tips or comments or insight or other ways to answer the questions, I would love to see those comments and that feedback in the comments below, especially if you are one of the Patreon members, because it's important for iron to sharpen iron. So I was recently talking with a friend and they reminded me of this phrase that you can have two of the following three things. You can only have two of the following three things. You can either have it fast, you can have it cheap, or you can have it high quality. Now, the reality at the end of the day is that good things really do come to those who wait. The really good and excellent things are going to take time. They're going to take effort. They're going to take resources. Sometimes that's money. Sometimes it's compost. And it's going to take community. So if you want it fast, that's fine. You're going to get fast results. If you want to do it super cheap, that's okay. That may be a good fit for you. You're going to get those type of results. But if you want it at a high quality or done with excellence, it's okay to take it slow. It's okay to take one step at a time. It's not going to be born overnight. Food forests do take a few years to come into their own. Our gardening is the same way. Our property management, very similar. It's okay for it to take time, for years for those things to take place. That is partially why I like connecting with folks in Patreon, because it allows me to help share not only some of my successes that I've had, but a lot of mistakes. And I would like to say that I have learned from those mistakes. I don't always do this, but I try to not make the same mistake twice, which means I've made a lot of very different mistakes and I've approached the same scenario 11 or 12 different ways. Now, maybe none of them worked, but at least we're trying. We're taking little steps forward. So I would encourage you to share your experiences and your wisdom in the comments below. So before we get to the questions this month for the Homestead Huddle from our Patreon members, I do want to talk about real quick the top 3 things that you can be doing in your garden around your homestead this month according to your growing zone. So if you live in USDA growing zones 3 through 8, here's the top 3 things that I would be focusing on if I were in your shoes around my property, on my homestead, or on my farm. So the first thing that I would be focusing on this month in June for zones 3 through 8 is that early summer foliar sprays and soil drenches. So by that I mean, think about things like fish emulsion, sea kelp, probiotics in your soil. The more you use these things over the summer, especially in these colder growing zones, the more fruitfulness and green growth that you're going to see take place. Now, in those warmer climate zones, you can grow stuff year round. But in cold climates, in zone 5 or in zone 4, you got like 4 months of growing season. So beloved, maximize that growing season. Hit those foliar sprays every 3 or 4 weeks. I know that seems like a lot, but you will thank me at the end of the summer when you see that new growth, that extra hardening off material. It will really be worth it if you stay on those foliar sprays. If you want a really easy recipe, there's that on YouTube. There's also like a Ninja Master recipe of those that can be found on Patreon in PDFs and in extended classes. And I'm sorry for the thunderstorm behind me. For those of you that are big, Instagram or TikTok people, just consider this like a bonus ASMR session. So I'm not going to be like tapping on my cup frequently and doing weird mouth noises, but if you enjoy the rain and the thunder, there's the soundtrack in the background. So number 2, second thing that I would be doing this month is soil amending, specifically with 2 things, bone meal and compost. So if you can't do anything else this month, foliar sprays, bone meal, and compost. And when you compost, most fruit trees and berry bushes, keep it away from the stem, the trunk of the tree or the bush, but you can go 1 to 2 inches deep. Don't be afraid on that compost, especially if you're using mushroom compost. Yum, yum, eat it up. If you've got foliar issues, bacterial issues, fungal issues, almost always the answer to those questions is add compost. Add compost. Strengthen the root system of your tree, strengthen your soil structure, and that is going to help address the vast majority of the other issues. And then the third thing that I would say to focus on this month is this is your last round to plant your food plots. So pasture seeds, even sunflower seeds, wildflowers. This is kind of the last time to really jump in and get those food plots planted because you're at the end of the spring rainy season coming into summer heat. So you've got another about 1.5 weeks to finish up any pasture, food plot stuff, and then you're kind of done and in the waiting game for the rest of the summer. So those are the 3 things that I would focus on if you are in USDA zones 3 through 8. Now, if you're in USDA zones 9 through 11, the things that we're going to be focusing on are a little bit different this time of year. So the first thing that we're going to be focusing on, similar to the colder climate zones, is building our soil structure, whether that's in the garden or in the food forest. So you're adding a little bit of bone meal, maybe feather meal, compost. If you do nothing else, just compost this time of year. Also, like the colder climate zones, we're focusing on our foliar sprays. A lot of probiotics. So probiotics are going to help in our warmer climate zones this time of year because it lessens the chances of fungal diseases, powdery mildew, black sooty mold. So it's really going to help address a lot of those things. Kelp, you can do a lot of. Now, fish emulsion, we're doing in a bit of moderation, especially if you are near a body of water, because we don't want to be adding a lot of nitrogen to things this time of year simply because of algae blooms. So focusing on those foliar sprays and building the soil structure are the first 2. And then the third thing, enjoy your food forest. You are in peak food forest season. This is the time of year to be harvesting those tropical spinaches, enjoying the fruit off your trees. Now, stone fruits, many of them are done. Plums are just starting to ripen. The first round of avocados like Joey and Fantastic, they're starting to ripen. They're getting pretty close on the Joey avocados toward the end of the month and the 1st of July. But enjoy your food forest. Cherry of the Rio Grande is ripe. Barbados cherry is ripening right now. Pitanga tuba, the yellow star cherry, so many good things in the food forest. And around, this time of year in the food forest, mulberries are wrapping up. But if you snip the tips, then you stimulate that growth and you can get another round on those mulberries yet. So enjoy this time of year as food forest season is in full swing. Annual vegetables are asleep. So those are the 3 things that I would focus on if I were living in USDA zones 9 through 11. So let's jump into the questions this month for the Homestead Huddle. We've got 12, I think, questions this month to jump into. So these are going to be really fun, and I'm actually excited for a couple of these specifically because we get to go a little bit more in depth and are really pretty nerdy on some of these things. So question number 1 this month is, do you recommend using sheep's wool in the compost pile or around the food forest? If so, how would you go about using sheep's wool? That's a super cool question. So first of all, this person I know is doing sheep in Florida, which is very, very hard. There's a lot of bacteria problems that make doing sheep and wool very difficult. And this person, I think, is doing it really, really well. So mad kudos to you, you gals. So to answer the question, so sheep's wool is made of a couple different things. It's very, very high in keratin, which is a type of a protein, very high in other proteins, and it has some amino acids. And when it breaks down, it's extremely high in nitrogen levels. So it does do really well after it breaks down of helping keep moisture levels high in our soil. If you have soil that is draining too quickly, this is something to really add into the soil. Now, if you're doing sheep's wool and you're in a clay soil structure, you're probably going to want to compost it first before you add it to your soil. Otherwise, it can kind of make bricks, so to speak. Sheep's wool does break down a lot faster than things like human hair. Human hair and eggshells can take a year up to 4 years to actually break down in the soil, just because of its genetic makeup. So the sheep's wool is very different. The high keratin levels really help break down a lot faster. So you can break down sheep's wool in your soil as little as 4 months, up to about a year if you're not turning a compost pile or whatever. So it does break down faster, but just be aware that it always depends. So if you're adding it to a compost pile first and you're turning it, I mean, you could do the 18-day Berkeley method. It's not all going to break down, but it is going to kind of spread that out and diffuse it in there a little bit. Or, you can leave it on the pile, bury it a little bit, and then it's going to take up to a year to break down. But I would say absolutely go ahead and use that in the food forest around the garden. The only thing I would not do is I would not use it as a top dressing because it can get hydrophobic and the water can kind of seep off when it gets really hot and dry. So I wouldn't use it as your mulch as a top layer, but consider it as a mid layer if you're lasagna mulching. So if you have your soil, maybe do your wool, then some compost, then some wood chips, and that's going to be a-okay. Other options, I would say, there's a lot of local places that do historical arts. And so you may reach out to some place like the Barberville Pioneer Village or some other historical arts association. And a lot of those associations have weavers or have people that do wooling, and they still do the spinning wheels. And so they may be very interested in receiving some of your wool. Question number 2. I have a 7-gallon avocado, specifically a winter Mexican. It is 1 year in the ground and there were no blossoms this year. So should I then prune it next year? Should I allow it to fruit? Can it fruit? What do I do? So generally speaking, we don't want newly planted fruit trees to produce any fruit year one. If you leave one fruit on the tree recognizes, oh, I've got fruit. I got to take up all those extra nutrients to support that one fruit. It really is best to snip all of the young fruit off once they've formed and let all of the energy go excuse me, to root establishment. Now, once it's been in the ground one full calendar year, whether it's a 3-gallon tree, a 7-gallon, or a 30-gallon, you're good to go year 2 to let that tree produce whatever it wants to produce. Nature is very complex. The only reason a tree would want to produce year 1 when you put it in the ground is like if it was grafted and it's living in that phase of its tree life where it's going, I have a really young rootstock, but I have scion wood grafted in that could be 30 years old. And so the tree's still kind of learning. That's why it may produce too quickly, too soon. But as long as you've given it 1 calendar year in the ground and you've let that energy go to the roots, then you're totally fine. I would say focus this year on compost, adding rabbit manure, because that's a 1-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. It doesn't burn. Gentlemen, you can tinkle, urinate on the tree, around the base of the trees, and that's going to help it. So light fertilization, boosting the nutrient absorption this year is really going to help with producing fruit in the following year. Question number 3, is it okay to fertilize in June? So loaded question. If you are in the Midwest or a non-coastal region, absolutely. You can totally fertilize in June. If you are in a coastal region or someplace like Florida that has a lot of bodies of water that are going to the ocean, it really is an it depends scenario. Now, there is a legal fertilizing ban in Florida from mid-June until the 1st of September. It varies depending on where exactly you live. That ban is on all synthetic fertilizers. You should not, and you legally cannot be fertilizing even your yard using synthetic fertilizers from June until September because it increases algae blooms in our bodies of water. Now, it's a little bit of a gray area when it comes to the organic fertilizers because depending on your locale, you may be allowed to use certain organic fertilizers. So if you're far away inland, sometimes it is permissible, and you've got to check your county, to use things like bone meal or blood meal or kelp or whatever. That is legal and it is encouraged. Now, I want to be, in general, focusing on less nitrogen growth this time of year anyway. So I would focus more on like bone meal, feather meal compost that is going to be a little bit lighter. Now, compost and wood chips, no matter where you live, even if you're in a coastal area, salt life permaculture, you are still able to use compost. Compost is very light. It's absorbed almost immediately by the root systems of the plants. So compost is not only legal to use as a fertilizer or soil amendment, it is highly encouraged, and so is wood chipping, because that helps sequester that nitrogen and keep it where it's supposed to be instead of washing off into our waterways, which is where we don't want it. So in the month of June, I like to try and get most of my amending done the first few weeks of June, and then the last few weeks wrapping up with my amending and foliar sprays. It's fish emulsion, it's sea kelp, it's a lot of probiotics. And honestly, probiotics this time of year in subtropical climates especially are very beneficial because the high humidity often creates imbalances with fungal issues on our leaves, bacterial issues. And so those probiotics help increase the probiotic count on the leaves and the microbial life in the soil, creating a healthier plant, which staves off a lot of those fungal or bacterial issues. So yes, you can fertilize in June, but again, always research locally. I think it's just super important to always rely on your local resources. Yes, connect globally here on YouTube or on Patreon, but really connect with patriarchs and matriarchs that are in your local area that are farming the way you want to farm, and learning from those type of people. I love using things like my local extension office to diagnose, but I've gone through Master Gardener programs. And what I've loved with Master Gardener is they teach me how to diagnose a problem, but they always want to use a synthetic or a chemical, an herbicide or a pesticide or a fungicide or whatever to address the problem. So find someone locally that you can trust that is a patriarch or a matriarch, regardless of age, that's farming or doing homesteading the way that you want to, and really sharpen yourself and learn from them. Number 4, Can we mulch in June if we missed it this spring? Doesn't matter what growing zone you're in. Yes. June, July, fantastic months to be wood chipping. I mean, if you know me, I'm going to tell you to wood chip. I don't care what time of year it is. If your question starts with the phrase, can I wood chip ... I'm just going to say yes. I don't even care what you're going to say next. You can absolutely wood chip. You can absolutely mulch this time of year. Doing it in the warmer season does help it decompose faster, so go extra thick, 6 to 8 inches deep on your wood chips. And so if you're worried about it tying up nitrogen for a little while, then use more compost, underneath. But yes, absolutely mulch in June. Question number 5, is it okay to plant fruit trees? What ones should I focus on or what ones should I avoid? In the colder climate growing zones, 3 through 8, plant whatever the heck you want. I mean, you are good to just get fruit trees, berry bushes, all of them in the ground. Yeah, you are going to have to water a little bit because summer in the Midwest zones can be a little bit dry. So even though you're wood chipping heavily, you do want to water for the first month to get it established. There is a PDF for Patreon folks called How Often Do I Water a New Fruit Tree? And that is in the PDF document under collections. For those that are in the warmer climate growing zones, I would say focus on your highly tropical trees now. Strawberry trees, longan, lychee, mangoes, avocados, tropical cherries, and berries. I would say focus on those things now. I would not focus on I would probably avoid focusing on the stone fruits, less of the peaches, pear, plum, nectarine, apple. They're in full fruiting season. They just do better when planted almost into their dormancy. So I like to plant those ones in the late summer, early fall, even into the winter months. Use this month, July, and the 1st of August to focus on those super tropical trees. So I'm going to get a drink quick. Question number 6. I did chuckle when I read this one. And they private messaged me this one. So the question is, I know you are a designer and a permaculture consultant and that you'll do it locally and that you'll travel. However, for a novice permaculture person, should we just keep going DIY or should we hire it? Honestly, when I first got started, I did DIY a long time. I did a lot of YouTube, online classes, watching stuff on social media. What I found out is the answers were kind of all over the board. And I did learn a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I had some great successes. I did so many things wrong. I killed a lot of gardens. I remember one year in Kansas City, I was doing blood meal on something and I literally killed an entire flower bed because I didn't know that I needed to actually follow the application instructions on the quantity per square foot. And so I've killed a lot of stuff. So I would say DIY is fantastic. However, hiring a designer can be beneficial in a couple circumstances. I think one of those circumstances is that you want to just cut the time short and you want to start growing immediately. I think 2020 was a wake-up call for a lot of us that a lot of people realize I don't want to wait 10 more years to be successful at growing. I want help jump-starting that journey so I can get over the learning curve. And I think that's really what hiring a designer can do, is help you expedite getting to that peak, that tipping point, and help you become more abundant and more productive faster. And I would say the other thing that hiring a designer does is it helps you avoid a lot of the common mistakes. It helps you avoid the trial and error in all of this stuff. And I mean, I'll use electroculture as an example. I did a very in-depth, super nerdy study on the electroculture thing where I had multiple beds. I used the scientific method because I wanted it done right. So I did, different gauges of wire. I did different grounding techniques. I did quartz crystal on the top of some of them, and I used control groups, and I tested the soil before through soilkit.com, so it was third-party tested, and I did microbial tests under the microscope myself to check out the microbial life. And what I found out testing before and after, it didn't work. And I had seen all of this stuff on social media, and I feel like I was able to save myself a lot of years and a lot of stress and a lot of frustration because I just went for the facts. And so I feel like that's the benefit of hiring a designer is you get a plan, you get a strategy, you get a way to phase it on your property in the short and midterm so you can be in it for the long haul, and then take the next 10 years once you've been jump started. So I would say it really depends on your unique scenario. If you're okay with it taking 10, 15, 20 years of trial and error, rock the DIY. Do the YouTube stuff, learn from social media groups, great. Learn as you go. If you're wanting abundance a little bit faster, you want to get jump started so that you can do it on your own, probably hiring a designer is better. Question number 7. What flowers should I be planting right now from seed? I'm in USDA growing zone 8. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what growing zone you're in right now because it's a great time to plant a lot of things in all of the growing zones. So 3 through really 11, for example, if you want fresh flowers in your garden for Labor Day weekend, because I know a lot of people have family coming over Labor Day, you want your garden to be looking good. This is the time, literally the next 2 weeks, this is the time to be planting zinnia, cosmos, marigolds, straw flower, bachelor buttons, coreopsis, coxcomb, celosa, amaranth. Get all of those things in the ground now because they have about a 60 to 90 day blooming window, which is Labor Day weekend. So if you're wanting those fresh flowers for family or friends coming over Labor Day weekend, this next week or 2 weeks, this is your time to do that. So always be planning ahead. And for those of you wondering, I do try to give the heads up for like fall flowers, people that, have people coming over for like Halloween or Thanksgiving of when to plant those. It's not quite time yet, but if you are in the window of, I know I want fresh cut flowers for Labor Day weekend, the next 2 weeks, there's your fair warning. Number 8, for Floridians, what annual vegetables do you recommend planting this month in July? My honest answer, none. I just wouldn't. I know that if you look on the UF thing, there's things that you can plant this month. I just wouldn't. I think you can. I think it's doable to plant some things this month. Some beans, some peas, legumes, okra, whatever. I just think there's better options. I would say the better use of this month, if you're in USDA zones 9 through 11, whether that's Florida, Texas, California, whatever, I would just cover the soil with compost, with straw, and I would let your soil rest. Now is a great time just to cover the soil and let the garden rest. You are not on call or you shouldn't be on call as a human being 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You need rest. You need a sabbatical. So does your garden. So do your animals, so does your brain, so does your pet. They need lap time. They need snuggle time. It's okay to not be walking your dog 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I would say the best option, let your garden rest. Instead, I would say this is a great month, June and July in Florida. This is the time to get garden beds ready for the fall. If you are wanting to have a fall garden in Florida specifically, do not wait until August or September to get the soil ready and get your garden beds ready. That is stupid. You're going to be mad about the garden. You're going to be in a mad rush. Listen carefully. If you live in Florida and you want a fall garden, get your soil ready now. Start covering and solarizing areas. Start composting. Start adding wood chips. Build your raised beds now and then let them rest, let them decompose. So I don't want to hear any of you complaining this fall in Florida if you go, oh, I wanted to have an annual garden. I wanted those new garden beds. Now what do I do? Hey, we got like 2.5 months to get this done at a normal, stress-free, kind of pace. Because let's be honest, in Florida right now, it just feels like a steam boil for crab legs. Like it's just hot, so in a normal time of year in December, yeah, I could assemble, 5 raised beds in a weekend. This time of year, it's going to take me 2 months. It just is. It's just too hot to be outside for that long. So let's enjoy ourselves. Take the next 2 months, assemble your raised beds, get your annual vegetable soil ready for the fall so you're not freaking out in the fall. So there's our, again, that's our fair warning. And am I talking to myself? Yeah, probably. Number 9. When do I chop and drop? And I don't know what growing zone this person is from actually. So it's a newer Patreon member. Honestly, pretty much whenever in USDA zones 9 through 11. Right, I don't like to chop and drop when they have woody stems. Why? It's just harder. It's so much more energy to cut down vetiver grass and Mexican sunflower and pigeon pea when it's hardened off. I like to, and moringa, I like to get it to be 3, 4, 5, 6 feet tall, cut it down. 4, 5, 6 feet tall, cut it down. And if you do that in the warmer growing zones over the summer, you're gonna get 4 or 5 harvests of your moringa, your Mexican sunflower, your pigeon pea. You're gonna get all of that. You're not gonna impede your flowering of your Mexican sunflower if you want those, if you start cutting down now. So I would say go ahead and chop and drop. Now in the Midwest, I would still just wait a little bit until you start major chop and drop. So on things like Jerusalem artichoke, for example, great chop and drop. That's one I like to let it get like 5 or 6 feet tall. And for a lot of people right now, it's only about 3 to 4 feet tall. So I would still let those go a little bit. But in the Midwest, things like comfrey, any of your winter crops that you put in, I would absolutely chop and drop those for sure. For the how-to on those, there are a couple things in Patreon. One is a class available for most levels, and that's a much longer class. There's also multiple how-to chop and drop documents with diagrams, some works cited pages and references that it gets really nerdy in. So you can check those later. Question number 10, we have 3 more questions. The last one is my favorite. Question number 10 is, when do I harvest moringa? Very similar answer, I think, to number 9. I don't like moringa growing as a full-on tree. Couple reasons. One, because I think they're ugly. They lose all of their leaves in the winter time and they just look like a hot stick mess. Second reason is because of when hurricane season comes, a lot of moringa branches just snap off anyway. They're very weak. They snap off in our hurricane winds. I like to grow moringa personally by either coppicing, cutting it off every time, almost at ground level, or pollarding, cutting it back at about 3 feet, letting it grow to 6 feet. Cutting it at 3 feet, letting it grow to 6 feet. So I literally let it grow as a stem, like one trunk coming up, cut all of those branches back to that stem almost every single time. That's my favorite way to do moringa, and very similar to pigeon peas. So get all those moringa harvests in while you can. Question number 11, how do I boost my bananas so I actually get fruit this summer? If you don't feed your bananas will not feed you. Bananas are an herbaceous plant. It is actually an herb. You are harvesting the berry of the plant, not actually just the fruit. And because they grow so fast, so quickly, they require a lot of nutrients. So that's why I'm a big proponent of banana circles. There's a free link of how to do a banana circle at permaculturefx.com that gives you a diagram, some of the things that you can plant in there. There's a lot of other videos on Patreon on how to do it. But in general, compost, compost, compost. Every month during the growing season, you should be feeding your bananas something. It could be chop and drop of moringa and pigeon pea. It could be vetiver grass. It could be mowing over your sweet potato vines. It could be lemongrass. It could be sugar cane. You're feeding it something. If you're too busy to do any of that, go buy compost. I don't care if it's mushroom compost or black cow manure, compost. At least 1 or 2 bags every month. It's like $4, guys. It's so cheap. And you're gonna have so many bananas if you feed them. But remember, if you don't feed your bananas, they are not going to feed you. So feed your bananas every month. Epsom salts, I just did Epsom salts on mine the other day. That is not a regular salt. We are never using regular table salt on the land, not even as a weed killer. It's not only unbiblical, but it's against the Geneva Convention. So we're only using Epsom salts because that is magnesium sulfate. So technically it's magnesium. It's not a salt as we would know it. So Lots and lots of doing that. And I would say if you're not amending, add some companion plants in. So add vetiver grass, add some sugar cane, add a papaya. Those are all great companion plants for your bananas. And June and July are great months to add in those companion plants for your bananas if you want fruit later on in the season. So last question. I love this question. I want to do a full video on this, actually, a full class. How do we address a food forest that is out of control? You've gotten busy, you've neglected it, you forgot about it, you put it in the ground and just wanted to see what happens. How do you address a food forest that's under control? I would say it's okay to let it be out of control, but every so often do a hard reset. Hard resets are good for our human bodies. It's like the equivalent of going on a fast. When you go on a 3-day or a 7-day fast, always check with your family care physician first. It does reset the body. It allows your body and your stem cells to focus on healing, doing the repair work in a way that it can't when you're busy and when you're in survival and mode. So your food forest is the same way, just like your computer. It's okay to do a hard reset. So I'm going to give you 4 things that I would do in order to hard reset your food forest and just kind of start over a little bit. And then you might be good for another 6 months, another year, another 3 or 5 years. But I think most of all, this is not only going to benefit your food forest, these ways are going to benefit your soil, but it's going to also benefit your mental health, because it is always stressful for a gardener to walk out into the garden and food forest and to see and know that it's a hot mess and that it's not doing well. That's hard. And if you are not doing well, your food forest is not going to do well. Your garden is not going to do well. So I think this is good, yes, for your food forest and your soil, but most importantly, a hard reset on a food forest is good for our mental health and our visual health. So the first way to reset your food forest, the first thing that I would do is flag all of the trees and plants that you do not want to cut down, that you don't want to hit, that you don't want to accidentally miss. So it could either be with, stakes in the ground that you've spray painted a neon color. It could be just using that neon ribbon tape and tying it on all of the trees. Flag the ones that you do not want to accidentally hit. I've done that so many times of specifically like a flower or an herb, and I'll just be weed whacking or mowing and I just forget and I hit it and I'm mad. I just did it, last year. So flag the trees and plants that you don't want to hit is number 1. Second thing to do is to weed whack or mow it and cycle the nutrients. So once you have weed whacked it, that allows you to address things in a lot other ways, whether it's solarizing or composting again, or just chopping and drop. There's other things that you can do, but weed whack the hot mess down. Rip out as many of the hard-stemmed invasive plants as you can. Weed whack it all down. I promise you, just by weed whacking it down and by cycling the nutrients, your brain is going to feel so much better. Your heart is going to feel so much better just by seeing those staple pieces again, by seeing the keystone pieces again. It'll really, really help your heart. So the first thing is flag the trees. Second thing is weed whack everything down, mow it down, chop it and drop it, cycle the nutrients. The third thing is prune hard. Now I know it is not the ideal time of year to prune your fruit trees in really any growing zone. Normally we want to wait until things are dormant. However, if your food forest is wild and untamed and really out of control right now, chances are you're not going to have time in December around the holidays to be pruning your fruit trees. And that's why the food forest is the way that it is right now. So just cut your losses. Prune now. Generally speaking, if you're one of those like, I want to do everything I'm supposed to every month because you're a former teacher and educator, or you're like me and you're probably clinically obsessive compulsive, then yes, wait until December. But if you're doing a hard reset, flag your trees, weed whack everything, and hard prune. No more than 1/3 of the tree at one time. Start from the bottom, get rid of the suckers, and then go from the top. No more than 1/3 of the tree at one time. Number 4, the fourth thing that I would do last is mulch thick and do it immediately. I'm talking the day or two after you weed whack, because we all know if you say, well, I'm going to weed whack today and then this weekend I'll do the wood chips. No, you're not. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do it. What's going to happen is I'm going to get busy. I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to see a squirrel or a butterfly and I'm going to go off in another direction. That's exactly what's going to happen. So if you've done the work of weed whacking it down and flagging the trees and you pruned everything really hard, just finish it. Just cover it up. Do the mulch, do the wood chips right away. If you can't do it, throw a tarp down and smother it for a few days. Do not leave it open to the elements, because those weeds are going to regrow and you're going to be in the same place all over again. So ideally, we don't let our food forest get to that place. But if you did, it's okay. It's okay. It happens and it is fixable. And honestly, the problem is the solution. The fact that you have all of that green growth and weeds is beautiful, because you've just created a lot of really good biomass that is now going back into your soil. But again, you want it to go into your soil. If you just cut it down and you let it stay on the soil surface, as it dries, that nitrogen is going back up into the atmosphere. I don't want it there. I want it in the soil. The only way for that nitrogen and that biomass to get down where we need it is to cover it up with wood chips or with straw, layer mulch it, whatever you've got to do. So that's the way to reset a food forest in short. But love to do a longer class on that later on. But again, the problem is the solution. If you let it get to that point, it is totally fixable. If you need help, let's figure it out. If you're local here in Florida, I would love to work alongside you. This summer, I'm kind of testing out a little bit of these grow and learn or learn and grow options, where I'll come and work with you for 3, 4, 5 hours in your garden, in your food forest. We'll do it together. This is not you pay Chris to do it. It's you pay me to do it with you. And we learn, we grow together. I teach you how to prune, teach you how to do the stuff that's right for your garden, so you don't need to worry about all the stuff later. So if you need some help, that's great. Don't have a problem asking for help. Let's figure it out. It's okay to do those hard resets once in a while. It's actually good for us in the long run. So those are the 12 questions this month. Hopefully these are helpful to you, whether you are in Canada and USDA growing zone 3 or northern Michigan or the Upper Peninsula, or you're in Kansas City, or you're down in South Florida in Miami. So hi to my friends down there. Doesn't matter where you are. This month is a busy month in the garden and in the food forest. It's a great time to stay connected, to get outside, enjoy the summer with friends and with family, because that is what the garden is all about. It is all about connection and helping our families and our bodies become a little bit better every single day. So if you have questions, feel free to post those in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join for this class or the many, many others that are found in Patreon. As always, have fun, and I will see you in the garden.